Okay, so today we're going to learn how to divide four-digit numbers by one-digit numbers, but this time we are going to have a remainder. Now, when we have that remainder, we are going to represent that remainder as a fraction. So what that looks like is basically in the past when some adults were taught how to divide, what we would see is you will see a number like this, 429 remainder 2. Okay, so we're not going to do that now in fourth grade. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to represent that remainder as a fraction. So in order to do this, we of course need to make sure we understand our vocabulary. The first thing that we're going to talk about again is our divisor. So remember, our divisor is the amount of groups that we are breaking this up into. Remember, 3005 is our dividend. That's how much we are breaking up into groups. The divisor is the amount of groups. So we are going to break up 3005 into 7 groups. But of course, we already know we're going to have a remainder because that's our objective for today. So what we're going to do is I am actually going to use the partial quotient strategy to complete this activity. But before that, we want to talk about fractions. We aren't going to go into great detail with fractions. We're only going to talk about the terminology. So when we look here, we have 1/4. What we're going to focus on is the 1 is what we call a numerator. And the 4, or the bottom number, is what we refer to as a denominator. A student actually pointed out the D and denominator represents down, and then here we have a U in numerator, which means up. So whichever way you guys would like to remember that, that's really important when we are representing our remainders as fractions. The next thing that we're going to think of is our divisor is always going to be our denominator. So those two are always, the divisor will always be the numerator. So for this answer or this question, this equation, we technically already know what the denominator is going to be because it's going to be 7, okay? We know the divisor is always the denominator. We need to figure out what is that number that's remaining, okay? So for example, we're going to start over. We're going to have 3005 divided by 7. And for the purposes of this activity, remember, I am going to use partial quotient. But of course, this works with any type of strategy. It'll work with standard algorithm. Although we don't teach standard algorithm in fourth grade, it'll also work with area model, arrays, different things. So what we're going to do, we're going to use that strategy still. We have 7. One of the students has termed it as the hangman strategy because it looks like we're getting ready to play hangman. And we have 3005. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at those first two numbers. What number can I multiply by 7 to get me close to 30 without going over? So I know I can multiply 4, sorry. So 7 times 4 is 28. I am missing 1 2 digits, so I'm going to add 1 2 digits, 1 2 digits. That means 7 times 400 is 2,800. I'm going to subtract that number. 5 minus 0 is 5. 0 minus 0 is 0. 0 minus 8, we know we can't do this. Sometimes I see a lot of students, they'll say 0 minus 8. They know they can't do it, and then they'll reverse it and go 8 minus 0. Remember, this is where we will regroup. So we're going to borrow one number from that 3. It's going to turn into a 2. That 0 turns into 10. 10 minus 8 is 2. 2 minus 2 is 0. We're going to do the same thing again. What can I multiply by 7 to get me close to those first digits, which is 20? I'm going to multiply 2. 2 times 7, I know, is 14. Let me think, what number am I missing? I'm missing 1 digit. I'm going to add 1 digit, 1 digit. That shows me that 7 times 20 is equal to 140. We're subtracting. 5 minus 0 is 5. 0 minus 4, I know I can't do. I need to regroup. 2 turns into a 1. 0 turns into 10. 10 minus 4 is 65. Okay, next step we are going to do is we're going to think, well, what number again can I multiply by 7 to get me close to 65 without going over? Now, I have a difficult time with my multiplication facts, but what I like to teach students is you know your powers of 10. So sometimes when we get in those 7s, 8s, and 9 numbers, we have a difficult time. So if you can know 7 times 10 is 70 because you know your powers of 10, we're going to bring it one number down. We know that 7 times 9 is going to give us 63, okay? So We're going to subtract. I have 5, take away 3, which is 2. 6 minus 6 is 0. So we're technically done. But what I like to say to check and make sure that we are done, we're going to ask ourselves that question again. What can I multiply by 7 to get me close to 2 without going over? Can I multiply a number? Right now in 4th grade, we can't. So that's how we know we're done. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add up these numbers. We have 400 plus 20 plus 9. So I have 429. Now remember, that remainder is always going to be the numerator. So we're going to write 2. And do not forget that divisor is always going to be my denominator. So it is 429 and 2 7s. A way to kind of remember this on how we think about this number is if I was traveling 3,005 miles over the course of 7 days, I want to travel the same amount of miles each day. How many miles will I have to drive or travel in one day? I know I need to travel 429 and 2 7ths of a mile. So thinking of it that way helps us kind of remember, especially since we have not dived into fractions yet, helping us remember how to make sense of these types of problems. Okay, remember, my job is to teach you all how to divide in all of the different ways. You choose the way that's best works for you. So whether it be area model, partial quotients, arrays, choose the one that works best for you. Make sure you double check your work. And there we go.